I remember some guy said, "Hey, the Get Up Kids called and they want their songs back." And I laughed because, yeah, I don't think there was any secret there. I mean, Nate was a big fan. I think it showed.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, if you want to support the podcast, you can do it for $1 a month over on Patreon, patreon.com/thiswasthescene, and that'd be great. Sig Transit Gloria were a four-piece band consisting of Nate, Jason, Mike, and Pat. Their sound was that whole keyboards-driven magic shit that was very Get Up Kids-esque back in the day. My old band toured to Chicago a lot, which we absolutely loved, and we'd play the Fireside and then some Legion Hall shows and things like that. And we played with these guys a bunch and became really good friends. Like when we'd be out there, we'd all like love seeing each other and hang out, and we talk about that in the interview. But we fucking love these guys, and so I'm really excited that I finally got Pat on this to talk, which was actually pretty easy. So I posted in this Fireside group that's on Facebook, and someone's like, "You should reach out to Pat." So I did. And I got him on the Skype, and this is what we talk about. The time when I traded shirts with their bassist, getting Matt Allison to record their first EP, signing to Johann's Face Records, getting compared to the Get Up Kids, how well did they get along, the Drive-Thru Records Story, the OK Later album, and a ton more. Make sure you check out their Bandcamp page. It's sigtransit.bandcamp.com. It's not S-I-C, it's S-I-G, and it's just Sig Transit, not sigtransitgloria.bandcamp, which doesn't really make any sense. They should have just did the whole thing. Finally, go check out my animation company, drive80.com. If you're in the market for an explainer video for your company, we can do it in 60 seconds, and then you can save all of that time in your sales meetings. So go check it out. There's samples on there, and you can email mike@drive80.com if you have questions about pricing and all that good stuff. Feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started.
My buddy, he goes, "Are you going to talk about the Drive-Thru Records thing?" And I went, "I wonder if that guy would sue me because he's that kind of guy."
I don't know what the Drive-Thru Records thing is, so this is already off to a good start.
Yeah, let's just say I will probably completely shit talk that guy, and deservedly so. And I haven't talked to him in like 20 years, and I'm like, he's that guy that would totally fucking sue you if he heard that.
Yeah, there's so you're gonna be like episode 141, and through this, there's been a lot. I've talked to a good amount of bands that had connections with Drive-Thru and like Vagrant and Equal Vision. So I'm getting all this behind the scenes scoop on what was happening, and a lot, some positive, some just kind of frustration, and there's not like a lot of people drop a lot of dirt or they talk shit, because I try to keep it as chill and not like,
oh yeah, like I mean, I'll talk about anything. I'm just like, I remember that guy like straight up harassing us, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to talk to this guy. And yeah, it was funny because he acted like a child, but I'm like, you know what, I don't care. I'll just say whatever I want, and if that guy for some reason ever hears it. But definitely, like, well, you know the Midtown guys, right?
yeah.
Yeah, oh my God. I remember doing shows with those guys, and they were straight up like, "You want my advice? Don't fucking sign to that label." I was like, oh, Jesus. Oh, yeah, no. Like, the guys in Newfound Glory were like, "Oh, God, stay away." I was like, oh, all right, well, that makes life easier.
No shit. Yeah, I interviewed Ian from Newfound Glory, and I've interviewed Rob and Heath from Midtown. So Rob listens to this, so and Heath does too. So I'll be interested if they hear that, and they'll probably be like, "Yep, I remember that." I remember
yeah,
that.
no, they had some horror stories, and yeah, that guy harassed me for about a year, even after the band broke up, and I was like, you know what, fuck you, dude.
Was that because you guys weren't on any late? I structure this usually. I go back in time and build up to this part, but since we're here, I want to hang here for a minute. You also, and real quick, it's awesome talking to you. And I know someone's like, wait, stop, don't go off topic, but I had to just kind of cut in. Like, dude, it's been forever, and I want to talk about that since I haven't seen you in 20 years. But we used to love like playing with you guys.
I found a picture of us the other day when I was looking for like my car registration. What are the fucking chances I would open this random box and I have a picture of us standing in front of your van and it was just sitting right on top? I'm like, all right, well, that was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, we weren't on any of those bigger labels. We put out 2 records with Mark Ruffalo on Johann's Face, and then that was and that was it. But there were some other labels that were interested for sure. But the Drive-Thru people stick out the most. Like they took a meeting. Yeah, I mean, I'll go into it on the show, and then if you want to cut something out later, I don't personally care. You can leave in whatever you want, but.
Yeah, I usually leave pretty much everything in just because the stuff is just so interesting. And also, it takes like 4 hours to edit these every Saturday. So I try
Oh,
to,
really?
yeah, it's fun. It's like I get up and just keeps me productive on the weekend before I go out and drink my face off. There's just so many spots right there. And actually, real quick too, I know I'm jumping around, but I have a picture. I have a bunch of pictures of us when we were all hanging out after whatever the shows were playing. I get the one where I think it was me and the bass player or your roadie switch shirts, where he took the Nooner shirt and I took the I Love My Girlfriend shirt.
Oh, that was probably Jason, the bass player.
Yes, I forget. I think I said to him like, I want that shirt, and he's like, well, I'll give you mine if I get that one. So we're like, yes, and we just switched them.
Yeah.
And there's a picture of all of us after we did that.
Yeah, that's Jason. That's totally
Okay.
Jason.
I wonder if he still. I definitely don't have that shirt anymore because it's like a size small when it looked like it was big on me back then.
He probably still has it. He's that dude. He doesn't throw anything away. He has like a keepsake box of like flyers and pictures and like buttons and shit.
That's awesome. All right,
Oh
so
yeah.
I'm gonna work back up to the drive-through thing to kind of build some suspense here. That's also fucking weird that you found that photo and then we started, and then this interview is happening. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's odd.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm not like big on signs or anything. Like my wife is, like she'll see something somewhere and she's like, "Oh, it was meant to be." Like I'm not like superstitious or anything like that, but when I saw that I went, "Okay, maybe it's a sign."
That's wild. Yeah, Matt from Emmanuel, the week before we talked, he ended up just finding an Emmanuel shirt on eBay and bought it. And then the next week, we connected out of nowhere because he heard the Strider interview, and he messaged me. He's like, "Dude, I just found this is awesome." And I was like, "Yo, we should get on an interview, or we should do
That's
this."
hilarious.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I don't know. Maybe it's a sign, dude. Maybe
Maybe.
this is. I don't know what the hell it would be a sign of. Just it's us talking. Um, but all right, dude. So let's kind of like go back in time and talk about how you got involved in the scene. And like, was it the band that got you into it, or were you a part of it and then you started the band?
Oh no, I was involved in it pretty early on, probably like 13 years old. They had shows in our neighborhood at the local YMCA. Started going there pretty quickly, kind of figured out that it felt like home. It was a lot of kids that were like me and all my other friends, where you just wanted to get the hell out of your house and go see some music. And we saw a bunch of shows. Wasn't really anything great. Back then it was really, really diverse. So you'd go see a band play, and the first band would sound like some weird version of like, Fugazi and Primus. And then you'd have a ska band, and like the Boll Weevils would headline. It was all over the place, which was cool because you got to see a bunch of different styles of music. And I played in bands just in high school. It was nothing serious, just getting together with friends. And that's actually how I met Jason, the bass player. This guy, Doug Caro, in the Chicago scene. So anybody listening may know Doug Caro if you're from Chicago. He used to play music. He was kind of odd guy, really nice, but he was always looking for people to play with. He was at every show selling zines and records, and he kept a notepad at his merch table, and he would just have you write down your name and your number and what instrument you played. And I had this band in high school that played one show, and it was all cover songs. We needed a guitar player. So my friend called Doug and said, "Hey, do you have any contacts for guitar players?" And he gave us 2 names. The other guy I don't remember. And then the other guy was Jason. So I called Jason and said, "Hey, I have this band and Doug gave me your number. Do you want to play guitar?" And he goes, "Hey, were you guys the guys that just played at the YMCA with like the fat drummer and you were terrible?" because I used to be a little heavier back in the
Oh
day, and
no.
I just said, yeah, actually, that's me. And he went, oh shit, dude, I'm really sorry. And I had a laugh because I didn't care. So he came to my house. His mom dropped him off, and he had his little amp and his guitar, and he just showed up and started jamming with me and my buddy. He pretty quickly was like, I have my own songs. Do you want to try one of mine? We're like, yeah, sure. And he starts playing some song he wrote, and it was like a complete song. Like he had melodies, and he's always been that guy. We all know that guy who can just pick up a guitar and crank out a song in 2 minutes, and it's great. And you're like, how the hell did you do that?
Yep.
So he's that guy. And we played a little bit, and then that ended. And then like a year later, he had another project that needed a drummer. So I played with him on that. And Nate, the singer, I knew because my friend Dan had a little brother, and he was best friends with Nate. So I would see Nate all the time, but I didn't really know him that well. He was just that guy's goofy friend. Mike, the keyboard player, I'd only met maybe twice, and they were both like house parties. And the only reason I met him is because he had weed and he knew who Cool Keith was. So we bonded over rap records and weed, and that was it. And then I didn't really see him, but we were all still involved in the scene in some capacity, whether, playing with bands, or you would just run into people at the fireside, and then you would just kind of network with people. But, Jason was always a guy I always played with. We weren't really in touch all that much leading up to the band. I had maybe talked to him here and there a few times, and then he and Nate and Mike started Sig Transit Gloria. I wasn't the original drummer.
Okay.
Yeah. The original drummer was Dave Tirio, who is the guitar player for the Plain White T's.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They were in the next town over. So they were all part of the local scene, and Dave was the original drummer. They recorded a few things with Dave, like some homemade basement tapes, and it took off really quick. Like the band in general was around for like a minute, and then it was over. And he was in the band for maybe a couple months. They played a few shows. Pretty quickly, they had a following, and I saw their first ever show. And I remember saying to Jason after that, I said, if Dave doesn't work out, you know where to find me. And he just kind of laughed about it. But pretty quickly, the Plain White T's, locally were starting to get a bigger following and touring more.
Oh wait, so are you talking about who blew up pretty quickly? Was it Plain White T's or Sig Transit Gloria?
The Plain White T's were probably bigger at that point because they'd been around for a while. They were just a three-piece, but they were starting to kind of pick up momentum. I think like the manager from Jimmy Eat World had got a copy of their tape and really liked it and wanted to work with them. So they started doing more things. And then Dave was kind of in a position where he wasn't going to turn his back on those guys because he had been with them since high school. And he just said, I can't do both bands. And to his credit, he stayed loyal and just said, you guys should find a drummer. At the time, Jason and I were both going to community college, and I ran into him on the stairs, and he said, hey, give me 2 minutes of your time. And then he just said, do you want to play in our band? And I didn't think about it. I just said, yes, of course I want to play in your band. And I listened to that CD. They had a little homemade CD, and I just wore that thing out. So I already knew the songs pretty well.
Wait, was this the record? So what's the first? Is it 28-2000? Because you have a greater than sign, so I don't remember how to say it. So just 28-2000?
It's just, yeah, and it was literally, that was what was written on the CD because that was the date we recorded it. The first EP actually was a demo tape. It wasn't meant to be released, but when we started practicing together, we pretty quickly started writing music as the band that became the band that people knew. But I still wanted to play a lot of the old songs. But Nate and Jason were just like a song factory. They just crank them out left and right. So we started to kind of piece together songs and started practicing. And they took a minute to get used to me because Dave was a pretty soft hitting drummer. You know, it was kind of like a Ringo, just a backbeat, nothing fancy. It was really good. And I play way harder than he does. So when we first started practicing, I remember Jason used to wear these canister, like, I guess, like, I don't know, like earbuds or whatever, but those big cans that like the guys at the airport wear when they don't want to go deaf. Hitting hard in a tiny basement wasn't something they were used to. Yeah. I remember the first song we ever played together was one of the songs on the CD, and Nate said, "Okay, well, you know, here's how it goes." And I'm like, "Hey man, I already know. I got these memorized. Let's just do it." And we played the first song, and when it was over, I just remember Nate said, "What the hell was that?" And I thought I screwed up or something. I'm like, great. Like they don't want me to play in the band. And then they all started laughing and I didn't get it. And they just said, "We're not used to that." You know, Dave doesn't play that hard.
Do you think that like that added the like every band has signature parts in their sound? Do you think that did people notice that and say that changed the not changed the band? I don't really know how to word this. Like kind of advanced the sound.
Yeah, I think I remember, well, my very first show with the band, they were putting all their stuff on the stage, and then I just walked up there. I remember some guy saying, "Who the fuck is that guy?" I went, "Oh, okay." Because the band had only played a few shows, but with their songs and that time, it was kind of one of those, a lot of bands that are really good the timing could be off and they just don't hit at the right time. And if they had started, you know, earlier, maybe they would have caught on more. And that band, when they started it, really came at the right time because that was in our scene. It seemed to shift really quickly, almost overnight. Like 98, you know, I graduated high school. All the bands that I loved in our high school, the punk rock kids were pretty split. You know, you had one group that was like the Fat Records kids and you know, they loved Pennywise and all that stuff. And our friends were way more the Lookout Records kids. And we loved, you know, Pinhead Gunpowder and the Queers and Mr. T Experience. And those bands kind of started to fade. Mr. T Experience wasn't pulling them in like they used to. And everybody kind of overnight started to dress like Rivers Cuomo, which I thought was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happened quick. And the sound shifted to be more of, I guess, what became quote unquote emo, which I never got that. I always associated that with Fugazi. I guess if you had a soft singer and some softer sounding songs, then you were just put in that category. And when that started to become more of the popular sound, that's when they started the band. So it hit like at the right time, and it got really popular almost overnight. So when I joined the band, even though they had only played a few shows, it was already to some people like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" So when we played the first few songs, it was noticeably a little louder, a little faster, and I was worried that people wouldn't like it, but they did. So,
Well, I mean, you guys started that sound because you guys started 2000 then. Well, they around that time, but they started before you, but then it's like 99 into 2000 or the middle of 2000.
well, the band started roughly maybe August of 99 is when they started, but it was really just Jason and Nate just writing songs together, and they didn't have a name. And to this day, people still message the Facebook page every now and again to correct the name because Sig Transit Gloria is not an actual thing. It's actually sick with a C, but they were watching Rushmore. And there's that scene in Rushmore where he says Sig Transit Gloria, and they thought he said Sig. So they just wrote that down and said, that's a cool name for a band. And people would still come up to us almost every other show like clockwork and go, well, that's not how it's spelled. It's like, yeah, we know, man. We don't care, whatever. We already put it on the t-shirts. We're not going to go back. That was in the day when merch was big. That's how you really made money, was shirts and buttons, stickers, stuff like that. Once we started playing, I think the initial shock of the sound didn't really change all that much. It just got a little louder. I'm not the best drummer when it comes to meter. I'm kind of all over the place. It was fine. And then pretty quickly it was, well, we need to put something down on tape with this solidified lineup. I knew Matt Allison from way back in the day before he became the Matt Allison a lot of people know now. He actually had recorded this band Houseboy, and I love that record. And I just looked at the CD and it said Matt Allison. And I thought, oh, yeah, he did that Broadway's record and he did Alkaline Trio, God Damn It. That was a big deal. And his phone number was in the Illinois Entertainer, which is like the free magazine. You're walking out of Guitar Center and they've got the stack of the free music magazines. And Illinois Entertainer was a good resource for studios. And his number was in there. And I had called him one day, and I had a band at the time that wasn't doing anything, but we wanted to record. And I had a friendship with him pretty quickly. And still to this day, I still talk to Matt. He's the best guy. And it's weird now. People go, oh my God, you're from Chicago. Do you know Matt Allison? I'm like, wow, it's just surreal to me how popular he got, but good for him because that guy worked his ass off. And now he's doing quite well for himself. But we needed to record pretty quickly for whatever reason. They seemed to really press, let's get something down on tape. So I just called him and said, can we come in next week for a few hours and record a demo tape? And he was like, yeah, of course. So we went there, and the 2000 EP was the demo tape. We had just recorded 5 songs in maybe 6 hours. It's pretty sloppy. It was really something that we wanted to just have to pass around to, promoters and kids who wrote for zines and some, local record labels and really anybody that just wanted it. It wasn't intended to make money or anything like that. And then a friend of ours who was friends with Mark Ruvolo at Johann's Face Records said, hey, I was talking to Mark the other day and he said he liked your band. And that was a big deal to us because Johann's Face is pretty legendary in Chicago as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he had the Smoking Popes. We were huge fans. To even talk to that guy at the time was, you're 19, 20 years old. That's pretty intimidating. I mean, he had the Popes. He had Apocalypse Hoboken, and he put out the first Trio 7-inch. So it was a big deal. And he wanted to, I guess, talk to us. Our mutual friend said, he works at this bar one night a week, and I think he's working tomorrow. Jason and I decided, well, let's go there, and we'll just give him the CD, and we'll see, maybe he'll like it. We drove all the way down from the suburbs to Ukrainian Village to this bar called Tuman's. And we walk in and he was standing right there and we were really nervous. And I remember Jason looking at me going, you give him the CD. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I just gave him the CD and I just said, hey, and I had met Mark before here and there, but I didn't really know him. And we gave him the CD, and he's a very quiet guy. And he was just like, oh, great, thanks a lot. And then, we really just left. So we didn't hear anything for a few days. And we were like, there's no internet presence really at this point, not like it is now. So you're staring at like the kitchen phone, waiting for this thing to ring. And then he finally called Jason and said, do you want to have a meeting at my house? And you're trying to play it cool. Like, yeah, I think we can do that. But behind the phone, I mean, people are freaking out like this is a big deal. So we talked to him at his house. We all piled in Nate's car and drove down there. We sat in his living room and he just said, I really like what you guys are doing and I'd like to put out a record. We were like, oh, well, I think we could do something like that. And
I guess we're free.
yeah, we've got some time. We could probably do that. Mark's old school. No contracts, nothing like that. It's a handshake and an understanding that you're going to put out the record, I'm going to do my bit, and then we'll go from there. So we agreed to put out a record with him. And then I remember we got in the car, and as we drove away, it was like a group scream in the car, like, oh my God, like, this is crazy. You're going to be on the same label as the Smoking Popes, and Mark had his own band, No Empathy, and he put out Alkaline Trio, put out Apocalypse Hoboken. He put out a record by this band called The Strike that was really good. So just to be associated with that, even if it didn't go anywhere, that's one of those, I'm going to tell my kids one day I was on that label kind of thing. So we assumed we would go make a proper record. And he just said, well, I like this demo tape. Let's just put this out. And we're like, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was not the intention because it was a little sloppy. I mean, it's a demo tape. He said, well, I like it, but let's clean it up. We went back to Atlas with Matt Allison, kind of really just, I guess, remixed it, maybe tweaked a few things, and that was it. And then the next thing I knew, Mark goes, oh, well, here's your record. And we went to his house and he had cases of CDs. It was professional looking. It had the logo on the back. And it was like, I needed a minute. I took my copy of the CD and went outside and I just stared at it because, when you're younger, you kind of have this idea of, I'm going to start a band and then we'll see if it grows. And then maybe you get on some type of label when labels really kind of mattered back then. Now it's different. Record labels are pretty obsolete. I mean, you have the internet, you can record in your house and you have a record out online in less than a day. It wasn't like that then. So when you had a physical copy in your hand and you saw that Johann's Face logo on there and it's your band, I literally went outside by myself and I'm like, I need a minute to just take this in because I didn't want to take really any of it for granted. It was really exciting. And he said, okay, well, now we're going to start playing some shows. And he knew way more people than we did. So pretty quickly we started playing, I guess, quote unquote, bigger shows and opening for bigger bands. It really took off really fast. It honestly seemed like overnight we played like a house party. And then the next thing I know, we're playing with you guys. And, I remember we did that run of shows with like the Lawrence Arms and that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys were great every night. And like, how are we going to follow that? Like, I can't follow that. There's no way. And people were there to see Lawrence Arms, so it was good exposure.
I remember there was a big buzz about you guys. Do you ever meet Amber Payne?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Amber was a really good friend of ours, still a really good friend, and she would really helped us like kind of weave our way, like just kind of get involved in the Chicago scene when we played out there. We loved Chicago. Like we fucking loved it, and she was a really huge help with that. And I could swear when we played that show with you, because I thought we'd played with you guys a couple times when we went out, but I'm thinking I think it might have just been when we were on tour with the Lawrence Arms. But she goes, you got to check this band. They're playing with you guys. I swear this happened. And she said they're blowing up so fast and they're new, but they're so good. And that was you guys. And then so we saw you guys. We're like, holy shit, these guys are awesome. And then we met you and we're like, oh, they're fucking super awesome dudes. This is so great.
Oh yeah, I remember Amber. Yeah, I think she had, or she was part of like that college radio show.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember we were on that show. I don't know if she was there, but she was kind of like the gateway drug to getting on that college radio show, which, in our area, that was a big deal because it was free and it sounded professional and they'd play your band and other bands. But, oh yeah, no, I definitely remember her. And I remember her kind of saying the same thing to us, like, oh man, you guys are going to play with these guys. You're going to love them. They're great. Yeah, no, when we met you guys, I thought, okay, these are like-minded guys. They like to tour, they like to play, but they're just regular guys. When you're in bands that start to get a little more popular, then the stakes are higher. You're playing with bigger bands or bands that you have listened to, and now you're playing with them, and it can get nerve-wracking because you have this idea of these bands and you love their record and the guy writes lyrics you identify with. And I think I'm sure you guys did, I guess statistically, you play with a band that you admire and they turn out to be dicks. And it's weird. When we met you guys, I was like, oh, if they lived here, these are guys that like we would like barbecue. Yeah. I didn't feel intimidated at all. And the Lawrence Arms guys, I knew them from back in the day when Brennan was doing Slapstick. That was a big deal. We all loved Slapstick. I honestly don't think I missed a show from the first time I saw them. I think I got in a car and drove to Indianapolis once to see them. They were like the band. They were huge. Mm-hmm. And I guess in a similar fashion, they got big pretty quick. They worked at it for a few years and then they just ended. That was it. They just broke up, and we were like, well, what do you mean they broke up? What are we going to do now? They had the best live shows. When they broke up, they did the Broadways, and then Dan and the other half of the guys did Tuesday. And then that kind of fizzled out. And then Brennan started the Lawrence Arms, and they were great. So when we were getting to play with you guys and them, it wasn't nerve-wracking. It was very relaxing because you guys were really easy to get along with. We already kind of knew those guys. There was no bullshit, no attitudes, because you'd run into that occasionally, whether you were playing locally or out of town. And every now and again you have the headline band, and they can be divas occasionally. Really isn't a band specifically that comes to mind, but getting to meet, you guys, I knew pretty quickly, ooh, these are guys we could tour with and not want to strangle.
Yeah. It bummed me out that we never got a chance to go out with you guys, because I think we broke up at when the fuck? It was like the middle of 2001. So we had played a couple of shows with you guys. I think it was a few times. And then when that Lawrence Arms tour was done, but you guys were always that band where like, dude, we would get along so well with these fucking guys. We went out on the road with them.
Oh yeah. And it was one of those situations where I didn't give a shit if we played in front of 2,000 people or 2 people, just to like have guys you could hang out with, because all you do is hang out with each other. You need some new blood. You need to bounce ideas off of other people, or what's your scene like? Yeah. What do they do there? It was good to kind of meet a band like you guys where we were coming out around the same time, and the popularity, especially with you guys was pretty quick. So that was exciting to see in the sense of, oh, we're not alone here, because that was kind of weird to deal with, where it was in less than a year, the record came out. The next thing I know, I'm headlining the Fireside Bowl. And that was the biggest deal to me. To this day, I mean, we played the Metro. That was a big deal. Wow. Like Nirvana played there. That was a big deal. But when you're a young kid and you're getting into punk rock in Chicago, you want to play the Fireside Bowl. Even if you're the opening band on a Tuesday night, you can say, I played there. So when we were playing house shows, it literally seemed like overnight, the next thing you know, Brian Peterson's calling saying, do you guys want to play the Fireside and open for some of these bigger bands? And that was crazy. And then within a few months, we were headlining our own show. So that was hard to deal with. It was cool, as arrogant as it might sound. It was cool.
Well, did you feel like you had like imposter syndrome kind of?
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there were definitely moments where it was, okay, this is getting really big really fast, but you're also waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, oh, well, this won't be cool in a year. Or are we going to keep doing this and it's going to grow? Or are people, because you self-doubt a little bit because it's too good to be true. Everything you wanted to do happened so quick, whereas you saw other bands that were popular, but they really worked at it for years and toured and put out records that didn't really catch on, and it finally caught on. Whereas our band, and like you guys, it kind of started and then got popular quick. So how do you deal with that? You dream of these things when you're a kid, and then once you start to get that and it happens so quick, you don't know if you should feel happy or nervous or both. I think the way that it happened so quickly, we didn't really have the luxury to kind of sit around and analyze it. It was just, well, this is happening, so let's see what else is going to happen.
Did people like give you any shit for that? Because I mean, a lot of times there's jealousy, and we had that with
Oh
Midtown big
yeah.
time. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that happened out there.
Yeah, well, in this will definitely sound a little egotistical, I guess, but we started to notice quickly that a bunch of bands started to pop up with keyboards. We thought, you guys never did that before. And now everybody wants to add a keyboard. Or, there were definitely bands that tried to sound like us, which
Locally?
most of them would tell you that. Oh, yeah. I mean, we would play with guys and they go, "Oh man, we really liked your record, so we started a band," and that was cool to me. You just listened to a record and you thought, "Oh, I could do that. Like, I'm going to start a band." So it was cool, but there was definitely some bands that had been around much longer and they couldn't get a headlining slot at Fireside. They couldn't do bigger local shows around the Midwest. And yeah, you'd hear through the grapevine like, oh, the guitar player and so he can't stand you guys, but it's because you're doing things almost overnight that they haven't been able to do in 5 years, and it's not personal. I have no control over that. But yeah, no, I mean, I think you had the haters, so to speak. But
Well, I mean, think about it. You guys are also, you got Matt Allison, because Matt Allison's name too back then was definitely like a big name, kind of like Mark Trombino or
oh God, yeah,
God, who else? Just there's always those producers that stood out, and their name
Jerry
was
Finn.
yeah, like they or my God, fucking what's his face, Bill Stevenson.
Oh
Like
God.
I mean, obviously double impact there with him and Descendants, and then Blasting Room, but
Oh, he's my drumming icon. That's who I tried. I've tried to emulate that guy. I can't. We're both balding. That's about
there you go.
that's about it. But
I hope if he ever hears us, he's like, wow, that's great to know.
yeah, no, I actually met him not long ago when he was doing Flag. They played a show at the Double Door, and he was making his way through the crowd. I think he had to like go to the bathroom, and he just bumped into me, and he was like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." And I just went, "You're my hero." I didn't know what to say. It was embarrassing. And he just said, "Oh, thanks, man." And then he kept going, and I was like, "Okay, well, that just happened." I mean, that was one guy I always said, if I ever had a chance to make a record, at the Blasting Room, I would, I would do it. I would overpay just to be in that room. But yeah, I mean, he was big. And then, oh, who was the other guy? Oh, was it Jay Robbins? And it's funny because the bass player of Jawbox is from Chicago, and I remember they played here. They were opening for like Stone Temple Pilots or something, and I remember going to the mall. My buddy saw the bass player, and he's like, "That's the bass player from Jawbox," and I didn't really know who. I didn't know anything about him. I knew that one song they had on the radio, and then my buddy's band actually recorded with him, and it took me a minute, and I went, "Oh, that's the guy from Jawbox." So I think every area kind of had that producer or studio that you wanted to record at. And for us, we were lucky it was Matt Allison.
Well, I mean, that also helps give you that credibility, right? So you got two things happen there. You got Matt Allison who records you and puts that out, or produces it and records it, and then you also get Johann's Face Records. So those two things right there just set you up apart from so many people right from the get-go. And also, like, your sound was fucking catchy as shit, and you're coming out this time when keyboards were popping off because you got then James DeWeese joins Get Up Kids. He adds brings keyboard, and then the anniversaries around, and then like Reggie in the Full Effect. So the keyboard became that new thing, and it definitely. I mean that was the thing with you guys that and Nate's voice and all that. Like there was like this brightness to your sound. It was catchy.
Yeah, it's funny too because a lot of people, especially, if we're talking about the bands and people that I guess were jealous, that was always the thing. Is I remember some guy said, "Hey, the Get Up Kids called and they want their songs back." And I laughed because, yeah, I don't think there was any secret there. I mean, Nate was a big fan. I think it showed, and I don't think we tried to hide it. There's a lot of bands that clearly have ripped off certain bands, but then when they do interviews, they're like, "Oh, we were really influenced by this and this," and they try and kind of avoid admitting that, no, really, it's this band. I made no bones about it. I don't think any of us did because, yeah, they were a great band, and Nate definitely heard, those early Get Up Kids records and that. And it's funny, his songs almost already sounded like that without him realizing it. And then when that band got popular and he heard that, he went, "Oh, well, I like that, and I kind of write songs in that style, but these guys are doing it better. So how can I do it better? And let's add keyboards," because that, I think, early Get Up Kids stuff didn't sound like, what they later became. So when they added James, that was definitely a different direction for the band. It still sounded like them, but he added.
I didn't like it at all.
It's funny, a lot of people hated it.
I'm really afraid that if one day, like, if I happen to just I get the ability to interview like any of those guys, I've said in so many of these podcasts, I was like, I fucking didn't. I mean, I can listen to that now and be like, okay, like I get why the songs are catchy, but the keyboard going into it, and I said this in one interview, was like the reason I didn't like it is because it was kind of just thrown in there out of nowhere, and I was like, I wasn't prepared for that. I loved 4 Minute Mile because it was so raw, and when they added the keyboard, it just made it. I felt like it took away. Like some bands, I felt the keyboard really took away from the sound. If it came later, it just kind of it really softens it a lot, and it takes this edge away from it completely.
No, I agree. Yeah.
But with you guys or like bands like that, when it starts like that, I am it's already built in, so then I don't hate keyboards or Moogs, whatever the fuck you said, Moogs.
Oh, the Moog.
The Moog or Moog or whatever.
Yeah, nobody says it right.
Yeah, I think it's Moog actually. But I mean, when they start with that and it's from the beginning and the sound works, then I'm like, oh, this is great. But later on, I was like, so that's what, yeah, with the Get Up Kids, I was just like, I can't get into it, man.
Yeah, I think, and I think I imagine. I mean, I wasn't in that room, but I imagine for a band like that, they were probably aware of the fact that people who were really into them, like the first EP and then 4 Minute Mile, they were probably going to lose some fans. But I think at the same time, had they stayed on that path, it's hard to say if they would have gotten as big as they did. So I think it was kind of well, yeah, we're going to probably alienate some fans, but we're going to gain new fans in the process. Plus, at the end of the day, it's still our songs. They are just a little more polished, or they've added these keyboards. But yeah, there's definitely bands that I think, when they kind of alter their sound after the fact, it can get a little hard to listen to. But some of those bands I probably wouldn't have listened to if they hadn't been more polished. It's funny, I always talk about Against Me. I hated that band. I didn't get it. I didn't want to get it. I thought it was lame. I didn't get the vocals and the style. But then when they had a full band and just sounded like a regular band and not this screaming and weird tinny drum sounds. That actually helped me get into that band. So I was probably one of those people. They didn't really change their sound, but kind of got a little more polished.
Yeah.
And that attracted new people. And that's when I got into them, because when they first came out, everybody had that first album and they play it everywhere you went. And I would walk out. I hated it that much. I'm like, I'm going outside. I can't listen to this. And cut to 20 years later, my wife and I are flying to Los Angeles to see them play 2 nights and 4 albums. It's just weird. Yeah, it's kind of weird how the world works. There's definitely things that you're into when you're younger or not into. And then later on, you kind of flip your stance on them and, why did I ever listen to these guys? They're terrible. And there's definitely bands I like now, or bands I guess I could tolerate now that I could not really get into back then. But those bands at one point sounded like something that I didn't like. So I just wrote them off. I wasn't interested. And then they would kind of alter their sound or add a keyboard or add another guitar player. Then they started to make records that I could get into. So that was helpful. But yeah, for us, it wasn't a secret who the influences were. The funny thing is, I would say the Rentals were probably a bigger influence, especially with Mike. A lot of the stuff that he did, I think he drew from them probably a lot more. Did we sound a lot like the Get Up Kids? And Jason always had songs that a lot of them really sounded like the Smoking Popes, or like kind of more of a Green Day sound. Like, yeah, I mean, we definitely weren't trying to hide the fact, and you couldn't exactly play those songs and be like, oh, who are the Get Up Kids? I never heard of them. Like, come on, man.
Well, did you guys find as you were progressing with because you guys put out another record and then you put another one out in 2011, it says?
Yeah.
Well, did you find that when you were making those, or the writing newer songs, you said like Nate and Jason were just constantly churning songs out, did it ever just kind of get thrown in the middle of their process where they both said, okay, let's kind of veer from this Get Up Kids direction and advance on this? Or was that never something they just said out loud?
It definitely wasn't something they said out loud. And I think they didn't, because they probably didn't feel that way, because the songs, we were kind of a one-trick pony. It was a good trick, but we kind of had a lane that we stayed in. And especially, when the band ended, everybody has the story of, well, we weren't on the same page musically. This guy wanted to do this and this guy, we weren't really like that. We just wrote songs. Like, we didn't really think about it. We really wrote songs. And then the big test was, we had our core group of friends who we trusted and who also loved the band. So we would invite them over and go, okay, we've got these songs. Tell us if they're terrible.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And they were like, no, this is good. We're like, okay, great. They were no bullshit. They would tell you straight to your face, like, dude, that's garbage. Don't ever play that. It's terrible.
Damn, that's crazy you guys did that.
Yeah.
My ego would have gotten in place and been like, I'm writing this. You just going to listen to it.
No, it was, and that was always the thing, especially for us, is we really just wanted to play for our friends because they had a good time and you're making friends happy and feel comfortable playing in front of them. And yeah, we definitely had like a small core group of friends that were good sounding board. You'd record a song in the basement on the boom box and then give them the tape and they'd go, yeah, that one's okay. Ooh, that one's good. Keep that one, and that was helpful. But at the end of the day, if there was a song that we liked, and even if the audience didn't like it, but we liked playing it, then you don't really give a shit. You just want to play the song.
So as this is all happening and you guys are, now headlining and, you're playing the Metro, you're playing Fireside more. Did you guys go on any tours?
We did. Yeah. They were very brief, pretty much all East Coast and through the South. Mark had a lot of, just being Mark Ruvalo, he knew everybody. The first tour was a lot of places where he had played before and built relationships. So to get shows really wasn't as difficult because you had that guy in your corner. Whereas if you don't, Everybody's what was that? What was that magazine or that book? Was it Book Your Own Fucking Life?
Yeah.
Was that? Yeah, and you had a copy of it, or your buddy had a copy of it, and you're like, hey, let me borrow that. Oh, you need to play in Cleveland? You call this guy, And I remember having to do that in other bands, and good God, was that a pain in the ass. So having Mark, he could just pick up the phone and go, I got these guys and they're going to play. And whoever was on the other end would go, yeah, of course, no problem. So that made it easy, but there wasn't a lot of branching outside of the Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Iowa, like type area. I think we might've played in Michigan, but for the most part, it was mostly local, which made it easy because you could play and then go home, and that was it. But when you tour, it's like any relationship. You're fine, and then when you move in with each other, that's the test. That's when you know. And when you're in a van, and I'm sure you guys went through this, you find out really quickly things about people that you can't stand, and that's it. Every band that did well locally that broke up, it's always the tour, or one guy can't tour. That was always the big thing. And the first tour was fine. I met a lot of cool people I still talk to this day, a lot of good experiences. And I think overall the good outweighed the bad. But then the second tour was a little more stressful in the sense of there was always like a sense of urgency to strike while it was hot, because I remember Mark early on, and he was not wrong. He said, take this all in and also recognize that your band probably has a 3 to 4 year shelf life. And then after that, people are going to be on to the next thing. And when you hear that at first, you think that's insane. Like, oh no, it's just going to grow and we'll be doing this when we're 40. But, you look back now and he wasn't wrong. So we kind of felt like, okay, well, this is doing well. And we did a small tour, and in some cities, nobody sees you, you're playing for the bartender. And then some shows were packed and you sold a couple CDs. And then the next thing you know, other people from that scene are sending your whatever website messages like, hey, come back and play. So now the stakes are higher and you want to go back and play those same areas again. And that's when I think, not necessarily the business side of it, but once it started to become more like, okay, we're not playing around town anymore. We're going to have to take this on the road. And are they going to like it? Are they going to hate it? Are we going to kill each other? Stuff like that. So it started to get a little more stressful. One guy is missing his girlfriend, so his head's in another place. And, one guy is starting to not be into the music as much. So, his head's in another place. And it started to be more of, we made it a point to not talk to each other after the shows because we knew we're around each other all day. So after the shows, it was a known thing. You do your thing and just have time to yourself or go meet some other people, because if we didn't do that, we probably would have killed each other a lot sooner. But definitely as it started to get bigger, and again, keep in mind, it was maybe a year and a half that this all happened. So when you don't really have a moment to take that in and you just go, that's when tensions boil over, because you then start to come to a crossroads where, is this something we're going to do and we're going to do it right? Or are we just going to kind of mail it in and do some out of town shows? And that's really where the bands kind of start to split, because if you're not all on the same page and you have guys who either want to tour constantly or guys who don't, that's when it kind of starts to drive a wedge. And none of those guys, as far as I was concerned, I was replaceable. I didn't write those songs. I just played on them. But none of those guys were replaceable. So if there was any tension, I would get nervous, because I knew if any one of them left, that was it.
Mm.
Yeah. So I'm sure you guys dealt with that on the road. I imagine there was some butting of the heads.
Oh God, all the time. We were awful. Not we awful. Like we were kind of yeah. It's like you get in your own way. You know, it depends on the band. They either in someone's annoying you because they have weird habits that you didn't know that you were talking about, and you're like, why are you so fucking weird like that? And they have very specific things that they need,
Oh God.
and then some people could just be like, I was very chill about shit. I was like, dude, we're on the fucking road. I'll sleep on the floor. I always just chose the floor because I was like, I don't. If we got a hotel room, I'd say I'll just go on the floor because it's guaranteed. I'm not gonna sit here and argue with you about having the bed, and you guys can't not sleep in the fucking bed. So I'm just gonna just be really good at sleeping on the floor. So I would just find my way to just stay out of the bullshit. But at the same time, too, you looking at other bands that are blowing up past you, and that starts getting in your head. So it's like all this stuff just really just it does help you learn a lot about like who you are, and it really just does just like have an effect on that those van rides when you're sitting there thinking and you're dealing with each other. That's the true test, like you said.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I remember there were moments where it seemed to happen. You know, it was almost you'd drive in the morning. You know, you'd wake up from wherever you played, and like, okay, we got to be in Cincinnati by 5 o'clock, so let's get going. And you know, everything's fine. And then randomly an hour later, there's a huge argument. You're like, where did that come from? But you definitely see sides of people that you've known forever but never in that capacity. And then the next thing you know, you're going, I didn't know you were like that. Wow, that's hard to deal with. And then it
Who got like?
really,
Well, sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
no, no, it's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say like who, because in our van, I'm just always transparent about this. Like me and Chris grew up like best friends since we were 14, and we butted heads the most because we just saw completely differently. I mean, we'd have screaming matches. Like I fucking hated him at points, and he me, and like he did not like me a lot. And so like I just have to know like who in your van, like who just did not get along when you're on the road.
You know, it was tough. Well, you know, Nate and Jason probably butted heads the most, but they were like brothers. It wasn't like some bands, especially when you have two guys in the band that are both songwriters, and um, had Jason always fronted his own bands. He fronted every band he was ever in, and he purposely didn't want to front this band. And I assumed that he did the first time I saw them. And when I saw him playing bass and kind of taking a back seat, and he had like one or two of his own songs, but Nate had the lion's share of the songs. They were each other's biggest cheerleader musically. So it was never like you know, some bands are like you have two songwriters. You know, one guy wants more of his songs on the next record and stuff like that. We never had that problem. They were literally two siblings. I mean, they might as well have been the two brothers from Oasis. Like they love each other, and then in 10 minutes later, they might be screaming at each other in the parking lot over the dumbest shit. And but you know, when you're tight like that, it's almost like because you're best friends, you almost hold your friends to a higher standard. Like, I've known you forever. Like, why would you do that? Or how could you say that? Or why would you doubt this? They butted heads a lot. I think probably, though, Mike was probably the one, and not in a bad way, but he was not really into that scene as much. Like there was bands that he really liked, but Mike was like a music nerd, you know. I mean, he could read sheet music, you know. We didn't know any of that stuff. So his musical tastes and just his style in general was kind of all over the place. And he, I guess, was evolving musically, where we were just kind of writing similar songs over and over because that's what we did. We weren't trying to be the next this or next that. We just wrote our songs. And I think he started to lose interest in the music, not so much the guys in the band, but he started to get a little burnt out. And I think he tried to hide it for a bit because he was having a good time. You know, at really at the end of it, he got kind of burnt out on the music, but he didn't get burnt out on playing in front of big crowds and getting to meet people. But then by the second tour, he was visibly just not into the music. I mean, you could see it occasionally on stage where he just looked so bored. And once it kind of, and it was, I felt, I really felt bad for him because I know how much he liked doing the band, but he was also that guy that was like, I have to be honest with myself. This isn't musically what I want to do. Or he would have these pieces of music that he wrote that were cool and interesting, but they weren't Sig Transit Gloria songs. So when he tried to incorporate some of that stuff into the music, it's not that it got shut down in the sense of like, oh, well, we already wrote this song. We're not interested. We gave everything a chance. I mean, I think we had a song that, I mean, it might have sounded like Radiohead for all I know. But if we played it once or twice and it didn't work, we knew quickly, okay, it's not working. We're not going to force this. You kind of know right away if a song is working or not. And Mike would come to practice and have these ideas. And some of them were cool, but a lot of them, we would kind of have like a sidebar. Mike would go outside to like smoke or something and be like, okay, that is cool, but it doesn't work for our band. How are we going to tell him that? But that's kind of where, as far as being in the van with people and it gets uncomfortable, that was where it was obvious that by the second tour, Mike had kind of checked out of the music. And then that kind of grew into, well, not only am I not really into writing these kinds of songs, but I'm not really into doing this band in general.
Oh,
And
man.
that was tough. But around that time, as the band starts to grow, now there are outside forces that are coming at your band, like bigger promoters. And there were record labels that definitely started sniffing around and were, you might play with a band and they'd say, hey, we gave your CD to the guy at our label and he really likes it. And you're like, whoa, that's cool. That's a big deal. And Mike was always, and we were always loyal to Mark, but Mark also encouraged us to not let him prevent us from joining another label or anything that really wouldn't involve Johann's face, because I mean, besides the fact that it was, let's not kid ourselves. I mean, it's good for business. I mean, if your band goes on to do big things and he put out the original records, who knows? I think Lookout Records was cashing checks on Green Day for probably 10 years because they put out those early records. And he was definitely a cheerleader and said, oh, I heard this guy likes your band. I know that label. Don't talk to them. The horror stories are not good. But that was kind of weird because the band had started to, I guess, butting heads a little bit, but then these opportunities come along and you're like, ooh, that's exciting, but Mike's not really on board right now, but we need him. So, well, let's take a meeting. And, bands would come to town and then their label person would be with them and run into you and be like, hey, let's have a chat real quick. I heard your record. Do you want to put out a record? And that's really when I would say the wedge in the band was the biggest, because you had some guys that were like, I don't want to do anything that doesn't involve Mark because we trust him. We've been with him. We know where we stand with him. And then there was the other half of the band, which really was me and probably Nate, that were like, well, no, we need to grow this. Like we're already at a point quickly where we might need support that Mark may not be able to provide because he's a mom and pop. I mean, he ran it out of his house. So when labels started kind of sniffing around, that's really when the arguing started. But at the same time, it's nice because they take you out to dinner. So you get a free meal out of it, which is nice. But and before we were recording, we were kind of chatting about some of those old war stories of label sniffing around. One that really sticks out and was probably the biggest kind of head scratcher and the thing that probably caused the most conflict was Drive-Thru Records.
Okay, so let's get into the.
We'll get into it. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I kind of teased at this a little bit, before when we were just kind of chatting, when we were getting started today. I had reservations about talking about the Drive-Thru thing only because a buddy of mine asked me, "Are you going to talk about that?" Because there's only a handful of people that really know that whole story, and it's nothing crazy. That guy from Drive-Thru, which was the reason I told my friend, I don't know if I'm going to talk about that because he seems like a guy who would probably sue me just for saying anything bad about him. But I don't have anything to take, so I don't really give a shit.
I think if you don't go into full slander where you say like things that are incriminating, but like I think
Yeah.
people can only sue if you say like this person's a giant piece of fucking shit or something like that. That's when they can. But if you just tell the facts about a story,
Yeah.
it's that's what happened.
Yeah. And he had somebody in our scene had some relationship with him. Oh, well, that was back, in that time when everybody had a street team. I don't know if anybody does
Oh
that
yeah,
anymore, but,
that's right.
yeah. And every label was like, oh, we have a street team in Chicago. And really, you just pass out flyers and stickers and you get free tickets. But it was still cool. And some kid worked with them or knew them and gave that guy from Drive-Thru the CD. I don't know any of this. And at the same time, we had played a bunch of shows with the Stereo. They were touring with Midtown. At that time, the Stereo was on Fueled by Ramen, and those guys had heard the CD and they really liked it. So they were, I guess, putting some feelers out there. It wasn't really the full court press to get a meeting or anything. They basically just said, we dig what you do. So we were on their radar, and just even then, that was cool. But the Drive-Thru guy, he was pretty aggressive in his pursuit, because around that time, them and Vagrant, were scooping up bands left and right. Just any band that was doing well or had potential. It was like a frenzy almost. And they had heard the CD, and then I think because it was a brother and sister who did the label, and I believe they are from New Jersey. Am I wrong about that?
No, yeah, they are. Yeah.
So he had heard the CD, and then I didn't know what he looked like. He didn't know what we looked like, but he'd heard the CD and said, "Hey, we're going to be in Chicago for Warped Tour," because I think Newfound Glory was playing, and maybe like Phoenix TX or one of their other bands. So they were going to be there, and he said, "Yeah, we'd really like to meet you guys. Do you want some backstage passes to Warped Tour?" And I went, "Sure. I don't know who you are, but Green Day's playing this year and they're my favorite band. I'll totally go backstage," which was cool because, as a side story real quick,
Yeah.
if that meeting doesn't happen, I don't get those passes. And I was standing in the catering line in the backstage area. I got randomly way more stoned than I should have, because my friend said, "Hey, Fat Mike from NoFX is over there smoking a joint. Do you want to go over there and smoke a joint with Fat Mike?" And I said, "Well, of course I want to do that. Who doesn't want to do that? Like, dudes who hate weed want to do that, because you're young. Well, you want to take it all in." And then I turn around and there's Billy Joe Armstrong, and he's like 5 feet tall. And I remember giving him one of our CDs, thinking he'll probably throw this in the garbage, but I can say I gave it to him.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And the Drive-Thru guy made all that possible. So I had smoked this joint with Fat Mike and a bunch of other people. And then I was like, I really need a sandwich and like a Gatorade. So I walked over to the food area for the bands, and I had my back turned and this guy bumped me. And I turned around and it was Mike Dirt. And I freaked out. I didn't know what to say. I mean, yeah, I was starstruck. I mean, I'm not going to try and play it
Yeah.
off cool. I freaked out. This was, I mean, I'll argue all day that Green Day and Nirvana, I mean, that's the reason I played in a band. You saw that and you went, oh, I can do that. I can't play like that guy in fucking Dream Theater or whatever. But those guys, they write cool songs and maybe not the greatest musicians, although I'll argue Green Day are much better musicians than I think people give them credit for. But that was crazy. And I just turned around and he's like, oh, I'm sorry about that. I was starstruck and really stoned. So I didn't know what to do, but I felt like I needed to talk to him. And I just said, hey, I saw you on TV talking about that Crimshrine record. And that's one of my favorite records. And we ended up talking for like an hour about Crimshrine, which was crazy.
Wow.
After that, he walked away and I started walking towards one of the gates to go back out into the crowd because there was a couple bands I wanted to see from the crowd. And I met the drive-through guy because someone had said, oh, that's the guy over there. And I still didn't know what he looked like. I mean, this is a guy who's emailing and he's excited about the band and giving us backstage passes to stuff, but I still don't know what he looks like. It's so weird. And then when I met him, I went, I didn't expect you to look like that. You look like my math teacher from high school. And not throwing the guy under the bus, at least at that point. He was very nice.
Well, I think you're right there. I think there he was. I don't know if he was how much older, but I think typically there was like that scene look where you had to have your keys clipped to the side of your pants, and you had the tight
Yeah.
jeans.
Yeah, we used to call it the janitor. Everybody was
Yeah,
the
the
janitor.
janitor
You had
look.
like
Oh, that was
700
huge.
keys, and you're like, none of those go to anything you own.
Yeah,
Like, come
yeah.
on, man. Maybe your house keys on there, and then the rest are like keys you just found somewhere and you just needed them. But yeah, I mean, it definitely felt, I guess, I don't want to say corporate because I find that kind of cheesy, but it seemed a lot more professional. Like he looked more like a guy who really cared about the music, but was definitely a businessman and understood, that side of it where that wasn't really our world. We were interested to see what was behind door number two, but we didn't know that world. So when he introduced himself, he was super nice and he just said, hey, we're going to be in town for another day. We'd really like to have a meeting with you guys. And of course, I'm excited about it, but still in the back of my head knowing, well, is Mike going to be into this? Because he's already slowly starting to kind of check out. Mike was, I would argue, regardless of the songs that were written, I mean, people really liked what he did. So if he's not on board, this is really some backstage passes and a free meal, and it's not going to go anywhere because he's not into it. But he was actually pretty excited about it. And they said, well, tomorrow night, why don't you guys come to our hotel? We'll have a chat. And then if you guys want to go get some food, and we're like, wow, this is crazy. So we drove to the hotel they were staying at, which was in a bad neighborhood. I don't think they knew that when they booked it. It was a little scary. We met them and we just sat down at the hotel and they just said, we like what you guys are doing, and had kind of started to float some things that they had already, it seemed like they already had a plan in place for a band that they never saw. They didn't know what we looked like. They've never seen us play live. They had the first CD, and already in the meeting, we're like, yeah, this is really cool, but maybe you should, I guess, in so many words, he was like, you guys need to polish your sound a little more. Your sound really raw, and, it's got to be tighter. And, we had a homemade cassette tape of 3 new songs that we had just recorded in the basement just so we could have a copy of it. And we ended up giving that to him like, oh, well, here's what we're up to currently, because that was one of his things right out of the gate was, well, I already get what you're doing now. What are you going to do down the road? So we handed him the tape. And admittedly, that was where a little ego kicked in because we had never put out any music that people rejected. I mean, yeah, you had people who just hated your band, but when we met Mark, we handed him the CD and he loved it right away. So admittedly, I thought, oh, well, this is a layup. He's going to hear that and it's going to be like Mark Part 2. And it was not that way at all. he listened to it and then wrote us back and said, "Oh, this needs work. That song's too long, or you should maybe think about slowing it down there," and stuff like that. And that really turned us off pretty quickly, but we thought, well, we've come this far. Let's hear what else he has to say. And when we were meeting with them, it was a pretty hard sell. Oh, well, we have these bands on our roster, and we could put together a package tour, and you could go out on the road with these guys and you'll be playing to more people. And that's really all we cared about, was getting more exposure, in the sense of everybody around Chicago had already seen it. They got it. They enjoyed it. But at some point, it's like you either try to take it to the next level, or the band breaks up, or you're just content to play, in front of your friends. And he really wanted to do this package tour. And I remember he had started to talk about merchandise, which I thought was odd, because he said, "Oh yeah, and we'll get all these shirts printed up." And kind of really in the middle of that meeting, I remember saying, "Well, do you have control of the merchandise? Because, and I know, back then, merch was key, because labels would certainly make the money off the records, and it is what it is. But bands controlled their own merch, no matter what, because you were guaranteed that was your money. They got no cut of that at all." And he had started to talk about merchandise and all this stuff, and that's when I went, okay, we'll talk about that down the road. So we talked to him. I remember at that time they were trying to sign Dashboard Confessional.
Oh, this is before that.
Yeah, he was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
they had been talking to him. I don't know why. I mean, they just assumed we all love that guy. No, nobody liked that guy. But that was like their thing, because they're like, "Oh, well, they're young kids. They'll eat this up. They'll think this is cool. Like, oh yeah, we're talking to him, and you guys could play with him and do all these things." And it was a lot to take in 2 hours. And then they just took us out to dinner, and we parted ways, and that was it. And they said, "We'll be in touch." Like a week later, it was kind of a continuation of the conversation. What do you guys think? And are you interested in doing this? Or what are your thoughts on it? And some of the stuff that they wanted, which I think was more tied to MCA Records, because they were an offshoot of them. I never knew how that worked.
Yeah, they were like a subsidiary. So that I think their deal was, I think I talked about this, it was like 6 record deals, and then at any point MCA could pick it up, and then they would get a cut of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't they talk to you guys too? I feel like they talked to you guys.
They talked to us in the very beginning, but then we went with Matt from Red Leader. But we knew about Drive-Thru before. We were cool with them before they became like Drive-Thru. They were always Drive-Thru, and like River Phoenix was, I think, their first band. Or no, I'm sorry. It was this band from New Jersey. Jesus Christ, I'm forgetting their name right now. But yeah, they were small, and then all of a sudden they acquired Newfound Glory, Midtown, I think River Phoenix too, or then Phoenix TX and all that shit.
Oh yeah, they had to change the name.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. Yeah, and I remember seeing them on MTV. So when I saw that, I went, "That's the guy that wants to talk to us? Does that mean we're going to be on TV?" Because that would have made my mom super happy. All of our parents were overly supportive. Like, we were lucky. Like, they came to the shows. They would loan us money for vans and recording sessions. And I thought, if I could just play on like Letterman, that would make my mom so happy. Does that mean we're going to do that? And
probably, yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably would have.
Who knows? But it was exactly what you're describing. That's exactly what it was they were like, "Oh, well, it's going to be this many records. And, if it does well, then maybe it could go to, MCA might pick it up." And I thought, wow, this is really exciting. And I remember we left that meeting and it was really crazy. But that wore off pretty quickly and kind of came back down to earth once he started communicating with us after that meeting. And like you were describing, it was, maybe it was 6 records. I don't remember, but I just remember thinking, this is I don't want to say shady, but it seemed odd that this guy who didn't know what we looked like, he's never seen us play live. He has one tape of maybe 6 songs, and he's already talking about how many records we would put out and what they could do for us as far as helping with touring and stuff like that. And most of the time, I think if something's too good to be true, there's a reason for that. And it seemed awkward. So I remember we had just said, well, we're interested. And he said, I'll tell you what, why don't we'll draw up a contract and really kind of put in writing what we would do for the band and, what your obligations would be and ours. And of course, with any contract, there's financial details and what you can do and what you can't do. And, it is what it is. And we were like, great, yeah, let's just have it in writing. And then we don't have to play this guessing game. So he sent the contract to my dad's house. When I got it, I shit you not, it was as thick as a phone book. I'm like, who's going to read all this shit?
Jesus.
Yeah, it was like, I'm like, this is not my wheelhouse. Now, randomly, and to this day, I don't know how, randomly, my mom knew this guy who was an entertainment lawyer, and he only represented like 2 bands, but one of them was Third Eye Blind.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, super random. And my mom knew him. She said, well, I'll have him take a look at this contract. He won't even charge me. He's an old friend. And I was like, wow, great. I mean, if he manages or reps that band, then he'll know. And I just remember talking to him on the phone after he read it. And his exact quote was, I got 2 pages into it and I put it down, and I'm going to tell you, don't sign that. Whatever you do, do not sign that. Only because, and it was nothing personal against them. He didn't know them, but he just said, you sign this, you're tied to them. Like even if the band breaks up, and they weren't alone. There's a lot of labels like it, but I remember there being some odd stipulations in there. Like if we owed them X amount of records and only put out 2. And then this was the one thing that sticks out, which I still think is insane. There was a clause in there that said if the band broke up and Nate started a new band that sounded pretty much like Sig Transit Gloria, that they could be entitled to those songs because it sounds the same. And once we read all of that, whatever excitement we had about that, it really went away. But it wasn't like, fuck that guy. It was more like, okay, it was a little intimidating. And it did drive a wedge for a minute because there was some of us who were really excited and then some of us who were not excited. But once I had talked to that lawyer guy and he said all of that, then we were all on the same page, like, we're not going to sign this. And it was as simple as that. And I remember talking to him and I just said, we've given it a lot of thought. We read over the contract and thanks, but no thanks. And that was it. It was nothing bad. But then I definitely remember things got a little nasty, in my opinion, because I remember after we turned him down, he did not deal with rejection well, I guess. I had heard, and I don't know if this is true at all, but I had heard rumors he was telling promoters across the country, don't book these guys, stuff like that.
I think we dealt with that too. I believe. I don't know 100%. I'm not saying it is, but something about that, it sounds very familiar. Yeah, go on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And the funny thing too was when we were talking with him, he said, by all means, talk to some of the other bands on our roster. They'll vouch for us. And that's exactly what I did. And I remember talking to some of the guys in Midtown and one of the guys in Newfound Glory. And then I remember we played in Texas with this band called the John Sparrow, and their drummer was the former drummer of Phoenix TX. So that was totally random. And collectively talking to guys in those bands, the overall sentiment was, take it from us, stay away. Just don't do it. The grass was not greener on the other side as we thought it would be. So definitely don't do that. Now, I never told him any of that simply because I didn't want to say that. And then they now have to go to a meeting with him or get ready to record the next record, and it's awkward. So I kept my mouth shut about that. But then it got to a point where after we had told him no thank you, he just kept coming around, and he told me, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. What are you doing? And I just, and I really tried to take the high road. I was like, yeah, okay, sure, man. I guess you're right. But, appreciate it, but no thanks. And then it just kept getting more and more and more. And I think I remember he had emailed me something, and I kind of snapped, and I was like, you know what? Fuck this guy. And I just picked up the phone, and I'm like, listen, man, I know you mean well, and you like our band, and it's flattering, but we're not interested in signing with your label. So accept that. Don't accept that. I don't really give a fuck, but this needs to stop because we're just not going to put out a record with you. That's all it is. He just said, oh, well, the other bands on our label didn't make that mistake. And I just said, you know what? I talked to the bands on your label as you told me to. And you know what they all said? They all said to not deal with you. So maybe think about that. Yeah. And I didn't want to have that conversation. In general, I don't try to burn bridges, especially if you're in a band. You just, even if you butt heads with a promoter or another band, you try not to burn bridges because you might run into them again down the road. Yeah. But that was a guy where I was like, you know what, you can get fucked. I don't really care. It's like we tried to be nice about it. And I had brought it up to him too. I said, I had heard rumors that you were like telling people not to book our band, which he denied. And I, like I said, I can't prove it. That was just something that was a rumor. The last kind of bit of the drive-through thing was there were guys that would start coming to our shows who knew them and would just walk up to us and be like, hey, I heard you guys said no. What are you doing? I'm like, are you sending goons? Like, what the fuck is this?
Whoa.
It was nuts. And that was kind of the one thing that really burnt us out on the whole, there are other labels that are interested thing. And the band was kind of starting to have problems even before that, but that was more like, okay, well, that was awkward. And, oh, well, you were excited about it. And I'm like, yeah, I was excited about it, but now I'm not. Let's just keep going. And we played more shows after that. He went away. He just disappeared from us. And then there was a couple other labels that were interested, but we were kind of, after that brief drive-through experience, I think there was some PTSD there where another label would call and you'd go, no, I don't care what you're offering. Just give us a minute here.
Damn.
We just dealt with this total shit show. Yeah, I swore they tried to sign you guys, didn't they?
Yeah, like it kind of mentioned before, they wanted to. They were talking to us when we signed a Red Leader, and so we were always kind of trying to stay in front of them, and then we just started to self implode anyway. And when we were we were just constantly. I mean, Chris had left the band. We went on our last tour without him, and we actually sounded. We got way tighter, and I was taking voice lessons, and like we got really tight, and then we played out in California, and the Lawrence Arms were with us. So Lawrence Arms stayed with Richard and Stephanie, and they ended up telling them all the shit we were talking about Midtown the whole time on the road. So we come out to our show. This was after LA, and I forget where we were, but our entire trailer was covered in the back on our door with Midtown and drive-through stickers because Richard and Stephanie gave them to the Lawrence Arms guys, and then they just basically tagged our entire trailer. And I remember Sean was so fucking mad. Like, he wanted to, like, kill Brendan or Chris or something. God. Yeah, so that totally fucked us. And that was our last tour ever, but we also burned out. We imploded. And then Brian quit and then started Gaslight Anthem, like, years later.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that, too. Somebody, I would see that, the Gaslight Anthem on like TV and stuff. I'm like, I know that kid. How do I know him? Because he had a distinct look. But, you don't think about it. And then a buddy of mine, like years ago, was like, well, he was in Laymeyer for a minute. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, what? I'm like, oh my God. And then I was going through, I had a bunch of pictures from around that time. And I'm like, wow, that's that guy.
Yep.
Who knew, Seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah, he was a nice dude. I mean, he Christ, I was as soon as they blew up, I was like very happy for him. You know, sometimes you can hold animosity, and I mean, him quitting was the reason I quit the band. Like when he quit, I was like, you know what, I'm fucking sick of this constant um whatever the word is.
Rotating cast of characters.
Exactly, man. I was like, I'm sick of these guitar players coming in and out. I don't want to restart this shit anymore. And so when Brian left, I was like, you know what, fuck this shit, I'm done. And so it's like I was definitely mad at him for in the beginning for quitting, but then later on when he started gaslighting, I was so over holding animosity. I was like, dude, good for him, man. The guy fucking worked his ass off and writes great songs. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's like, and those are always pills that are easier to swallow because when you see that, you go, oh, okay, he clearly had a path that he was going to go on,
oh,
and it wasn't
totally.
our band. Like, if he stays with our band, he doesn't go and do those things.
Yeah,
So,
he would like he
yeah,
wanted to write songs and shit like that, but I was like, eh. So, but yeah, with Drive-Thru though, like that was the thing where that really that yeah, we had a like not a similar experience, but it just they once we said no and once they heard about Midtown, they were like, all right, fuck you guys. I mean, they don't think they said that, but it was yeah, we're just not gonna communicate, I think, anymore. And then I've seen Richard a couple times after that, and we were always cool with each other. But yeah, there was always those stories from back then. But that's crazy that that was literally that started you guys going down the path of going, I don't really know if I want to do this shit.
yeah, no, that it was like, it's like that moment that you dream about when you're a kid, like the guy from the label comes to see your band and wants to offer you things. And then when it kind of happens and it doesn't go down the way, it does in the movie, it's kind of weird. You like, on one hand, I felt kind of defeated. And then on the other hand, I was like, okay, well, we got that out of our system now. We kind of know, I guess, what to expect. And when we had seen that contract, it was a shit contract. So we kind of already knew, okay, if we get to a point where someone else comes along, we already know what we don't want.
Yeah.
We're not interested in the main stipulation with us was if we went to another label, we controlled the merch no matter what, because that was Jason's thing. Jason is like the artist of the band. He drew the logos and made up the shirts and stuff like that. And just the thought of a label taking that, we were like, no, fuck no. And we wanted to also have the option to like put out a 7-inch with Mark and still kind of maintain a relationship with him. And that was really another nail in the coffin, is they said, once you come on board with us, that's it. You're not putting out records with anybody else. And yeah, we definitely didn't like that, but that was, yeah, that all happened in a short amount of time. It was the band was getting popular, he was interested, and then we're fighting at the same time. So pretty quickly, it went from exciting to really depressing. And then we got to Texas. We played some show. I think it was at a college. It might have been in Austin. I just remember we went out to the parking lot and we played like shit. And someone said something that set someone else off. And it was kind of like this shit's been building up for a while. We're not holding this in anymore. We're going to have it out. And we just really, really got in this huge argument in the parking lot. And, it was a lot of fuck yous and I don't want to do this anymore. And that's when I knew that was it, because there was no way we were going to, like you said, go through different guys. I was not interested in that. It was the four of us or it was nothing. I think that feeling was mutual. I don't think anybody would have said, well, we could go get another keyboard player. And I think we actually entertained that idea for a minute because a friend of ours played keyboards and he loved our band and could play the same stuff. But I couldn't do it. I wouldn't do it without the other guys. And I think at that point, that's a long drive home.
Yeah.
And it's silence. And it was fucking weird. And you kind of don't look at those people the same after that. And it's kind of heartbreaking and frustrating. And then it's confusing because you're like, well, what am I going to do now? This is what I've been doing for almost 2 years. Like I've kind of put my life on hold and I stopped going to school and working odd jobs and then trying to play as much as possible. So when it ended, I went, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. And we played our last show at the Fireside, and most of the people didn't know it was the last show. Some of them knew. I mean, our friends that were there knew, but people didn't know. And I remember right before we played, Mark came up on stage and gave each of us a beer, and he like drank a beer with us on stage, like a send off. And I remember Nate saying, for anybody who doesn't know, this is it. We're going to play tonight and then the band is over. And I remember specifically, I heard someone in the crowd go, this is a bunch of fucking bullshit, like screaming. And I went, oh man, and I was pretty sad knowing it was over, because I felt like we were just getting started, and who knows, maybe it would have flopped. Maybe it would have gotten big. Maybe it would have been somewhere in the middle. You'll never know. But at the same time, I did. And I always liked the idea of, I guess I don't know how to phrase it any better than saying, I'd rather go out on top. It's better to walk out than be thrown out. We were pretty popular at that point. So to walk away from it before it got to a point where it was sad and you can't really play as well anymore. And, we've all seen that band that's just, they're still going, and you're like, all right, I respect the fact that you love what you do, but come on, hang it up. It's like, let's not kid ourselves. And when it ended that way, it sucked, but I tried to find a silver lining, and that was the silver lining was we're going out on top. And it kind of turned into one of those bands where it was only around for a cup of coffee and then it was over. That was it, I mean, I'm not comparing the two to anybody listening, but a lot like Operation Ivy, where people love that band. But I think a lot of people don't realize is that they were only a band for maybe 2 years and then it went away. And now, right after that all ended, this is right before like MySpace came out and stuff like that. And I don't know if you ever got this from people, but definitely people would say, oh man, if MySpace was around, or Facebook or Twitter, or YouTube was a much bigger presence back then, your band probably would have gotten a lot bigger or had more exposure, because it's at your fingertips. You can just click a button and hear the latest song. Whereas back then, either someone discovered your band from a comp or a word of mouth. But did you guys ever get that? Like, did people say to you like, oh man, wouldn't it have been great if they had social media when you were a band?
Yeah, I mean, it's a given, but at the same time, at the core of anything is unstable. It's like building a house on sand. Sure, you can have a really good outside, but if the foundation sucks, it's going to sink, right? I mean, I definitely played around with it. We played a reunion show a couple years ago, so I got to start an Instagram account, and I had a blast with it the entire week. I mean, we're doing like behind the scenes. There was some clips of us practicing. It was just funny things of me and Sean walking around the whole week because I was staying with him. And when I was doing that, and you can still see it, it's like all on the Lanewire Instagram. I just thought it was the funniest thing, and I'll still post stuff. My brain connected very quickly to the opportunity that was, or the like what I could do with Instagram. So I think that would have happened with MySpace. I would have seen
Sure.
the benefit of that, because you could have. It's so much fun with it, and people say that all the time, but you're like, yeah, absolutely. But again, at the core of it, if you guys are already and we were already like just crumbling, you could have all the shit in the world. It's probably a better thing, because I think maybe some more people would have seen the shit
Oh yeah.
easier
Yeah. I
back
mean, it's
then.
all window dressing. I mean, you've got the picture up on the site, you can download the songs, but what you don't realize is the band in that picture wants to beat the shit out of each other.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yep.
it's like, but it's funny now, and I'm sure you guys get this, when, when the band broke up, everybody kind of tried different musical projects and it just wasn't the same. And
Yeah.
then people get married, they have kids, they get, regular jobs, and then that kind of goes away. And then, MySpace comes out, and I remember Jason just created a MySpace page for the band. And really it was just to put the songs up so people could have them, because people would reach out occasionally and say, hey, where can I get this stuff? The record's out of print, or you guys recorded these other songs and I can't find them. So our thing was like, well, just put them on the internet. We're not making money off these, records or songs anyway, so take them. And that's when it got, that was kind of like, it was surreal, because the next thing you're getting messages from like, I remember a guy from Mexico sent a message saying, oh, I listen to your CD all the time and I have a record store in Mexico. Do you want to come to Mexico? like, what are you, great? Like, this is crazy. But now the internet is more of a presence at this point. This is 2002-ish era, 2003. Now that people can instantly see your band, hear your band, and contact your band. I got a message from some guy, and I think he was in Taiwan, and he said, "Do you want to come to Taiwan and play like 4 shows?" I'm like, this is crazy.
Wow.
Like, how do you even know what this is? And then you thought, well, what if this was around when we were a band? Maybe people are right, and maybe it would have been better or bigger or more successful or whatever. But it wasn't a ton of it. The one thing that was pretty constant was, are you going to play a reunion show? Are you going to play? And it wasn't, I always wanted to, and I think the other guys would have entertained the idea, but we were at a point in our lives though, where enough time had passed and we were all cool with each other, but everybody had started lives. Nate's a chef now, very successful. And he went to cooking school, and Jason got married. Mike was off doing Mike shit. Not in a bad way. I love that kid. No, he was just playing in all these, other projects, and he was working. So it was kind of more of a, yeah, we're interested, but is it realistic? And then probably, I want to say 2004, 2005, I randomly one night was at a bar and kind of had this, like, I guess, moment of clarity where I just said, I need to do something different. I need to get out of here. So I packed everything I owned and I moved to Los Angeles for 4 years, just out of nowhere. I just did it.
What year was that?
2005.
Okay.
Yeah. I just, I needed to change, and, I was kind of burnt out on a lot of stuff in Chicago, and that's what I did. So I went and moved to LA for a few years, and I ended up having to move back home, and I needed a place to live. And I was talking to Jason because his mom had died the year before. So I flew home for the service because she was a big part of the band. Actually, in my home office, as we're talking, I'm looking at the poster of the EP that she took and custom framed for all of us. And I still have it on my wall to this day. I've always had it. And she was, she was a really vital part of the band. Like, let us make a lot of noise in her basement, and she would make cookies for us and stuff. She was just like the best lady. So at that point, I hadn't really talked to Jason that much, but when I heard his mom died, it's kind of one of those, sometimes there's events, either bad or good, that kind of bring people back together. And when I heard that she died, I was like, oh, there's no question, I'm on that fucking plane tomorrow. I don't even remember what I paid for that plane ticket, but I'm probably still paying it off. But I got there, and when I walked in, it's like I never left. We talked for a bit. We kind of started to talk more and more after that. And it was no other reason than we just had different lives. He was busy, I was busy, and that was it. So I went back to Los Angeles for maybe another year after that. And then when I moved back, I was talking to him and some other people, and I had mentioned to him that I needed a place to live. And he said, as luck would have it, our upstairs neighbor needs a roommate, and he's a younger guy, but he's pretty friendly, and you'd be our neighbor. And I was like, great. I talked to the neighbor guy on the phone for like a hot second, and I was like, yeah, I can pay rent, and you seem easy, don't eat my stuff, kind of shit. So when I moved back, Jason lived right below me. So we pretty quickly just started playing songs, because you can't put Jason and I or Jason and Nate in a room and not pick up a guitar. Within 10 minutes, someone's picking up a guitar. So we just started playing songs. I kind of thought, well, this is fun, maybe we should play a reunion show. But I never said it out loud because I honestly thought if there was, I think one guy who would definitely be the one who would not be into it or would be hesitant, it would be Jason, only because his thing, and he's been consistent on this since we were 14 years old. If it's not fun, I don't do it. That's
Yeah.
it. It's not a diva thing where like, oh, I need, I'll play for this much money, or I'll play if I can do this and this and this, or I don't have to do these things. That was never his thing. He just, if it wasn't fun, he didn't do it. And we were in his kitchen just eating some food, and just randomly out of nowhere, he just goes, I think we should play a reunion show. And I went, oh, okay. That was easy. Well, now that you mention it, and I definitely tried to play that cool. Oh yeah, I think that would be fun. But internally I was like, no, this is great, because there was some, to me, as lame as it sounds, there was some unfinished business there. And I really wanted to play at least one other show. I thought, well, okay, I'm interested, but are we going to get the other guys? And he was like, oh, I'll guarantee Nate'll do it. I'll call him right now. And he called Nate, and Nate was like, oh yeah, that's totally fine. No problem. Just let me know when and where to be. And it came together pretty quickly. Mike was totally on board, but we didn't tell anybody about it. Not because we wanted it to be like this crazy secretive thing, but we also had an understanding that we knew people would go. We knew it would be a big deal, only because, not from our own standpoint, but because of all of the messages we would get every year after year after year of, will you play again? So we knew the interest was there, but we hadn't practiced yet. So we decided to kind of keep it between us and some of our close friends and wives and girlfriends, but we didn't tell anybody, because when you practice for the first time, and I'm sure you guys dealt with this, when you get back in a room, you're like, this is either going to be super easy and it's going to be like riding a bike, or we are going to sound like total shit.
Yep.
And that was the one thing we all agreed on, was we're into it. There's no bullshit. There's no drama. But if it doesn't sound good, we're not going to do it. So we booked a rehearsal space for it was like a 2-hour time window, which I thought, oh yeah, that's plenty of time to blow the dust off and kind of warm up and see how it sounds. And we got in the room, and Nate just said, let's play this one song we always open with. And we didn't even we just played it. And it was literally like we were in Jason's basement and we never left. Honestly, I think we nailed it in the first try. So that's when we knew, okay, we can play. We'll be fine. Nate can still sing. I can still play drums, because I hadn't played in a long time. That's when we knew, okay, now we can tell people we're going to play some shows, because we're not worried that it'll sound like crap. So we booked a reunion show. About 3 days after we had booked that show, this guy, Joe, that we know very well, he said, and now he doesn't at this point know about the reunion show. And he said, hey, I know this sounds really weird, but he was getting married, and his wife, Brooke, we've known her forever. And he said, what are the chances you guys would think about getting back together to play our wedding? And I said, fun fact, we've already booked a show. And he was like, well, that's crazy. So he had no idea. So we agreed to play their wedding reception, but we played the first reunion show. Yeah, it was so random. And if it's not for that show, I don't meet my wife. So fun fact.
Wow. No shit.
Yeah, she was standing up in the wedding. She was there with her dude at the time, and I was there with a girl that I was with at the time. So, but we talked for like a minute, and I thought, ooh, I like her. She's fun. And cut to all these years later, and now I'm in our house.
No,
So,
that's
yeah.
crazy, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, without that, it doesn't happen. But
Wow.
we played the first reunion show, and I was like, it was the most nervous I'd ever been, because around that time I completely stopped drinking, which was never like a problem, but I just kind of, I was at a point in my life where I was like, all right, like you can't keep drinking like you're in Guns and fucking Roses, man. Like you've got to chill out and just really kind of step back and not drink as much, try going to bed before midnight. I was just kind of beating myself up, but I always had drinks before we played or whatever, just to kind of relax. So there was no buffer
Yep.
at all. And that was terrifying because I'd always had it, which I knew. I mean, if I really wanted to, I mean, it wasn't anything bad. It wasn't like rehab bad or anything. I really just kind of stopped because it's the cliche. You're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
And when we booked the show, I went, oh, fuck, I've never played sober in my life. How do you do that? I didn't know how to do that. The show had also sold out. So that's when I got like really nervous. But once we got there and set up and did the sound check, like that all went away. And then the kids started walking in the door. And I'm like, well, hey, if it bombs, at least we got that out of our system and we'll play their wedding and, that'll be it. So we played the first reunion show and I remember feeling really old because a lot of the kids there were much younger. And these were kids that were talking to us after the show and saying, hey, I never got to see your band, but I got into your music because of you guys were on this Asian Man Records comp. And I liked that song a lot. And I heard you on the, off of MySpace. And so that was cool to at least see that, to be able to play for people that always wanted to see it and didn't get to see it. I think we played okay. Yeah. A couple weeks later is when we played at Reggie's, and that's where they had their reception, and there was a lot of people there, and I thought, ooh, well, maybe we should just keep this going. But I also knew pretty quickly that it's cool and people like it now, but I knew the rest of the guys weren't really interested in keeping it going past a certain point, which I was bummed about because I thought we still had more to do. But looking back, I'm kind of glad that didn't happen because there's a lot of bands that get back together for reunion shows and then they keep playing again and then they're a band again and it's just not as good. And we all know those bands, whether you know them personally or you're fans. And it's like, it was cool when you did those first few shows, but if you were playing consistently, it's not as intriguing because it's like, okay, well, now I can just see it whenever I want, where it was more exciting to, like, when the Replacements played a show. I never saw the Replacements. I was too young for that. And they played a handful of shows and I went to every one of them and then they ended it and that was it. And I was glad that it went down like that. I didn't want it was kind of cool to just show up, crash a party and leave. That was it. But I think, we only played a handful of reunion shows, and the very last one we ever played was at a bar in Rockford. We played with this band, God's Reflex, who were also on Johann's Face, and that's like their hometown area. We played in front of like our friends and maybe 10 other people, and that was the last show we ever played. And I thought, that's cool. It ended how it started. It was full circle. Like, we just played in front of a few people. Yeah. And we haven't played since. So, but we still get the messages on the Facebook page, people interested in seeing the band. And it's like, I think it's safe to say at this point, it's it's not going to happen. I think we're a little too old. I'd probably throw my back out if I was trying to play right now.
How did this OK Later thing come out? Because it says 2011 on Bandcamp.
Yeah. So when the band started playing some reunion shows, we were always that band where, yeah, guys would come to practice with songs, but we were like that band that just jammed on something and then it would turn into a song and then you'd go, oh, well, fuck it. Let's just go with that. So when we started practicing, Nate and Jason had songs that they just had in their back pocket. So we just started jamming on some of them because really it was like, yeah, we have to practice the old stuff, but it would be fun to work in some new songs and have something new to put out with no expectations behind it other than people were asking for new music and we have new music. So Mike was living in like a loft in Chicago with a bunch of other friends, but they were all musicians. So they had this recording kind of set up where they lived in their loft and it was sectioned off. So we just recorded a bunch of these songs that we had written just to lay them down on tape. And it was funny because it was the same thing all over again. It was the demo tape of these 5 songs that ended up, we just put them out, kind of fine-tuned them a little bit, and then we really just put it online. I don't think we charged for it, or I think Jason set it up to where you could donate if you wanted to, but we just put it out. I don't know. I don't know how many downloads it got or if anybody liked it, but there was a few songs on there that I thought were some of the best things we ever did. I was glad that we got to kind of do that as well to kind of wrap it up. But yeah, that was the last thing we put out. One of the songs was the song Jason had written like 10 years before. Oh, wow. That he always wanted to record. So we did that.
Which one was that?
I want to say, I think it was that 8 Eyes song.
Yeah, it's the first track.
Yeah. Cause he was playing around with that song. I remember on and off, cause I remember him playing some of those chords with like a basic melody previously. So it was kind of one of those like, let's get this one finished and put it on tape and be done with it. And we threw that on there. But yeah, all those other songs, I mean, I think we wrote them in a couple practices just because we were always that band where, you know, if something sounded cool, even if we didn't need more songs for the set list, it's like, well, you just wrote it because it was good. You didn't want to, you know, not use it. But yeah, no, we put that out and I think the reception was good. I guess people seemed to like it, but yeah, there was no thought behind it or maybe someone will put this out or whatever. It's like, we kind of knew this was what it was going to be. We weren't going to like be a fully functioning band again and, you know, put out more records. So I think it was just more of something we wanted to do and enjoy it while it lasted.
Well, if anyone wants to check it out, you could go on Sig Transit. It just says sigtransit.bandcamp.com. So you can you can check it out there. I'll also link to it in the show notes because it's not on Spotify. I just checked Spotify right now because your first 2 albums are on there, but this one
it's funny
is not.
Because my wife uses Spotify, and I didn't even know we were on there. And I'm like, does anybody like get a royalty from that?
You do actually, yeah. I mean, technically, we re-released our first EP on I Surrender Records, which is Rob Hitt from Midtown's label, which is so funny. Talk about full circle coming around. Like me and Rob are now like friends, and I interviewed him, and I was just like, it's just so funny. It was like, man, I was so jealous of you guys back then, and now we like text each other all the time. So he put that out, and yeah, you do. I mean, it's like 0.03 cents per download or something. So technically, and I think it costs like $50 a year or something a month to host it. So you have to host it somewhere and then it shoots to Spotify and that's how it gets on there.
Weird.
Yeah, so it basically pays for itself.
I've never seen a dime from it. I don't think anybody has. I mean, if they have, great. I mean, I honestly don't care. I remember I was talking to Dr. Frank from the Mr. T Experience not long ago. He actually played Jughead from Screeching Weasel he would do shows in his house. He had Dr. Frank at his house, Dan from Sludgeworth and Weasel. And it was so cool. And I was like, wow, I'm in this house and seeing these guys. And I remember when he was done, I was talking to Dr. Frank about Spotify. And he said, I just got a check for like $9.02 or something like that. And I went, oh, okay. So yeah, they're on there. I don't know how many spins it gets, but I've heard that.
You could see it's got, so your second album, the self-titled album, the full length, that has the most plays. You could see it. So you got Song and F has 5,300. Pink Skies got 3,900. Yeah. Thank You has got 6,000. So that seems to be that, and Hurts to Smile are your 2 most popular played.
You're teaching me something about my own band. That's
exactly
crazy.
Yeah. Wide Open Window obviously has got the most from the other album because that song just like fucking owns.
Yeah, I feel like that one probably would have done the best. That was like a crowd favorite. Yeah, that's crazy. And that's the thing. That's what like makes the internet interesting. And I think like a lot of people in the last couple of years, with everything going on in the world, especially me, I just checked out of this shit, and I was always online, but I'm pretty much away from it now just because, I don't really, I can't deal with just the bullshit, but getting to do stuff like this, connect with old friends. That's what makes it, that's when you go, maybe the internet's not so bad.
Yeah.
I get to connect with old friends, or you find out that there's people who still care about your band. That's crazy to me. I mean, the fact that we're even doing this, and I've done a couple other much smaller interviews, but guys who have like a little online page and just want to ask some questions, and it's like, that's crazy. People still care. They're still interested in it.
I think it's kind of a perfect storm because people are hitting their late 30s, 40s, some even hitting 50, close to 50. So right around now, I look back at this time and I love it. I don't look back at it and think, man, I wish I still lived there, because I love the way that my life has just progressed and all. It's still all these cool pockets of things that I'm constantly. It's always a different lens that I've built the whole time.
Oh yeah.
But there's this random kind of resurgence happening right now where I've been doing this for about 3 years, over 3 years. And there's a documentary coming out called The Last Scene, which kind of dips into the early 2000s, or like the mid 2000s, or I'm sorry, the mid 90s, and then it goes a lot more into the 2000s. So that's happening. I just talked to Amy from Fiddler, and she's got this project. That one seems to be more low key, but she took a lot of photos over the years. So she's trying to put a book out with photos that she took from the Fiddler years. There's a book being written right now about the scene. Apparently, some punk rock museum is opening or opened somewhere. So it's just weird. There's this big nostalgic kick going on right now, and it's like we're right in kind of the beginning of it, or just I'd say like I wouldn't say it's. I mean, it could go on. Like when I first started this, I was like, how long can I talk to people about this shit? But anyone I talk to, I'm 3 years in, and the story is still going to be the same, right? So it's just kind of lost in time because depending on who talked to them about it. So now it's like I'm able to talk to bands like yourself and say like, all right, what's the story about this? And it's so fascinating.
Yeah, and and I think any band that did really well for a short amount of time and then just up and disappeared, those are, I always find, even me as a fan, I always find those stories a lot more intriguing than, they put out a bunch of records and then the audience got smaller and smaller and smaller, and then they just hung it up. Like, I think the bands that were only around for a short amount of time, that got in, did really, really well, and then got out, like, those are the bands that have the best stories. And I think you're right. I mean, there's definitely been a bit of a resurgence, because a lot of bands that are coming out now, I guess some of them could sound like a throwback a little bit. Yeah, I know I still get messages, from people just asking about the band. There's people just message and just have a question. They don't want anything. They just want to like talk to somebody about it. And I definitely think, and obviously your show's doing well. I did my homework before the show. Listen to a bunch of episodes. Man, that Weston episode was heavy shit, man.
Yeah, that was weird to do it because, like I said, I almost want to do a side podcast called "This Was the Dirt" and just have it be all the crazy shit that I just typically don't like, all the crazy stories, but have it hosted somewhere where maybe it's private and you gotta like pay to hear it or something. But
Sure.
that was one where I even started. I was like, dude, I don't know how to do this because I was like, I don't want to have this be a giant thing that blows up Jim's, James, Alex, Jimmy, his spot. I was like, I just want to hear Jesse's perspective because he was going like off online about it. I was like, all right, so what is happening now? But how do you like stay in the middle of that where you're not becoming a news source that's obviously too far right or too far left, and your opinions are coming through like that.
Oh yeah, and that's like, you hear, those are the story. I mean, that was an extreme case, but those are the stories you hear, and you go, "Ooh, I'm glad it didn't get to that point with our band." Like,
Yeah.
holy shit!
Yeah, man.
But you definitely have a lot of followers, and a lot of people listen to your show, and that, when I started to really like dig into the catalog of the episodes, to your point, it's like, oh no, people still give a shit about this. People
Totally.
still have stories to tell, and now that you have an outlet for it, and you get to talk about stuff like this, or horror stories from being on tour, and
Yeah.
just stuff that wasn't really documented then, because like I said before, it's like, this was before the internet was a really big presence like it is now. I mean, it was around, but not like today. So there's a lot of stories that people don't know about because you didn't talk about them, but now we get to come on your show and tell you how much people suck.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's just it's someone reached out to me, and I gotta wrap this up, but someone reached out to me a while ago. They're like, "Yo, Fat Mike is doing his rounds on a lot of podcasts. You should get him." I was like, and I think I've said this a couple times. I was like, I don't. It's not really on my radar to get someone who's done so many interviews and whose band is still around, and they don't like doing this. Like, I want to find the bands that ended back in the early 2000s, or maybe a little. They hung on a little bit, but they didn't go the way that they wanted it to, or it like they're not as well known as No Effects. Like anyone I talk to, some bands are, like I've talked to, they're pretty big. Like William from Sunny Day Real Estate. I was like, holy shit.
Oh, I
But
saw that. I was like, holy shit.
that
Wow,
was
I love that
crazy,
guy.
dude. Yeah, listen to that one. That one, I was geeking out in the first minute. My buddy's like, yo, I'm glad you kind of figured out how to hone it in, because I thought you were going to go off the rails the whole time and just geek out on him. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I caught a snippet of it for a second. Like most people, my attention is pretty short. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to listen to all these other episodes. But I just thought, I don't know how the hell he did that. I would not have been able to keep that together. I would have gone full, like, starstruck right off the bat, and probably would have just spent the whole time telling him how much I loved what he does.
Yeah, I really had to stop myself. Like, you could hear at the beginning where I'm like talking really fast, and I didn't even let him get a word. And I was like, okay, let me let you talk now. And he's like, all right, cool, man, it's awesome. Yeah, so, but I do like getting on the bands that didn't really have a lot of. You can't really find a lot about them, and that's my favorite part of this. It's just because that stuff really it's cataloging all this, which is fucking awesome. I don't know, I love it.
Yeah. And those are the more interesting stories,
Totally.
like you said, like, I love No Effects, and I enjoy a Fat Mike interview, or, any bands like that, but you kind of already know, and it's the same story.
Hmm.
We've been a band forever, and ups and downs and blah, blah, blah,
And they
blah.
don't want to do
It's
the
cool.
interview.
No, they don't, and it's like, I think guys like us and a lot of the bands that I've seen that you've interviewed, these are bands that are excited to talk about it because they
Yes.
don't get to. Bigger bands, they do interviews every hour, so it's just kind of the same thing over and over, and you already know what they will and won't talk about. So I think stuff like this is a hell of a lot more interesting. Like you said, there's pictures and there's stories, and the records are out, and maybe every now and again you can find some random video on YouTube, but there's not really a lot of this stuff wasn't really documented as well as it should have been. So to do stuff like this now is it's cool to get to talk about it, and I think it's cool for a lot of the people listening that heard the band but don't know what they look like, or never saw them play, and you can have people come on your show and tell their own war stories. It's a good time. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, man. No, I fucking loved it. All right, well, I'm gonna end this with two questions. Uh, Number one, what would you like to plug? It could either be something you're doing, it could be something a friend's doing, it could be both.
Ooh, that's tough. All my friends aren't really doing much music anymore. Everybody's just kind of, married or living in some other random state. So I will plug randomly. I'll say Friday Night Lights. It's the greatest show of all time, and if you don't watch it, you are fucking up. Are you a fan?
Oh, huge. Yeah, I love that show. It was so great.
Oh my God. See, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like a few years ago, my wife got me a Dylan Lyons t-shirt, and I'll wear it in public, and randomly someone will go, dude, nice shirt. You're like, yes, it's the best show ever. So I will plug that show. If you're not watching it, you are dropping the ball. Watch it. It's the greatest show. And the intro is so good. It's like, it sounds like Jimmy Eat World, or like, like it almost sounds like music from the era that we're talking about, but written by a 60-year-old man. So that's kind of random.
Awesome.
So that's my plug.
Okay. All right, so last question. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
Um, I think the biggest thing was, and still is really, and it sounds cliche and cheesy, but it's true. I think it's really just being honest people and good people. And I think in Chicago, we were lucky that we didn't, even if they weren't people you got along with or they played music that you didn't really like, everybody seemed really genuine. And I didn't, and especially a lot back then where it wasn't as, I guess, structured as it is now, where it's like you have a band and then you have to record, then you have to go on tour and do all this stuff. I think it was, the thing that I still hang on to is it has to be honest and it has to be fun. And that's what I always took away from it was not to take, and really the biggest thing I hold on to is I make it a point as much as I can to kind of stop and smell the roses, because like your situation, if that band keeps going, I may not be, I may not have the life that I have now. And I love my life now. But I think that was the big thing was you didn't know when it was going to end, whether, the Fireside closed. I bowled there a couple of years ago and it looks fancy. It's so surreal. So I think the biggest thing was don't take it for granted. It's okay to take a moment just to take everything in because, you might not be doing the same things 10 years from now that you're doing now. But in general, I think it's really, you have the obvious stuff. You knew going into shows, racism is not acceptable, sexism, homophobia, violence, just, meathead bullshit was just not allowed. And that was always, I've always been like that. But I think just seeing bands that were just interested in being genuine people and not structured and, they didn't have costume changes and they weren't planning encores and shit. They just played. And if people liked it, they liked it. And if they didn't, they still had a good time. And that's still what I hold on to is, if it's not fun and it's not genuine, don't fucking do it.